This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Welcome to Supernatural Circumstances, the podcast where we take you down the rabbit hole into the fantastic world of the strange, the paranormal, and the unknown. I'm Morgan Knudsen. Come along with me on this week's adventure. And guess what, guys? We are continuing our Summerween celebration. I mean, here we are. Most people are out camping. We're on the road. We're enjoying our summer, but our summer is not complete without some ghost stories around the campfire. I mean, let's be real. That's a staple. You know, you get out the s'mores and you got the hot cocoa and you're sitting around the fire and there's dark woods and you're kind of wondering what the heck is out there. And now normally on the show, we like to talk about some pretty deep stuff. And we're going to continue that tradition, but we're also going to inject some really fascinating and bizarre stories. So we are welcoming Jim Harold to the show today, and I'm so excited to have this guy. He is one of my favorite people to talk to. I've been on his show, Jim Harold's Campfire and the Paranormal podcast, a number of times, and he is so smart and so in depth with his thinking, his stories, his understanding of this subject matter that, I mean, I can't think of anybody better to sit around the campfire and tell some ghost stories with. So we're going to be covering all sorts of things today. High strangeness, you name it, but it'll be definitely stories that you guys can take to sit around your own campfire and have some fun. So let's get this going.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This episode is brought to you by JCPenney. Yes, JCPenney. And if you've been there recently, you know it's the place to go for jaw-dropping looks at brag-worthy prices. They've got something special for every style and budget, not to mention rewards and deals that make finding those hidden gems even sweeter. If you already shop JCPenney, you're already in on the secret. But if not, it's time to ask. Wait, am I sleeping on JCPenney? Shop JCPenney.com. Yes, JCPenney.
The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox is coming to Hulu. In 2007, Amanda Knox was studying abroad in Italy. She had no idea her dream would turn into a nightmare. Inspired by the actual events of her wrongful conviction and 15-year fight for freedom, watch the new Hulu original series, The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox, on August 20th. Streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers. Terms apply.
Well, it wouldn't be a summer paranormal vacation, really, Jim, without you and your amazing stories. So I'm so glad that you could make it, because there's really nobody else that I would want telling stories on this show with me today.
Well, thank you.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Happy summer vacation.
Oh my God. Like, here we are in August. I don't know where the hell the time went. Like, it's sped by this summer.
The year is, I was just thinking, before you know it, it's going to be December. I mean, it's going to go that fast. I mean, Halloween, we're really getting into the spooky season. I mean, once here in the States, once we hit Labor Day, the beginning of September, I'm like, it's off to the races for for spooky season. Like I consider the beginning of September, that's the starter's gun. And we're like 8 weeks of spookiness. And then, these days there's no lapse between that. November 1st, you get right into the holidays. Is kind of the way things have evolved for the year. So the year's almost over. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of our season. Like,
yeah.
Because I agree.
Yeah.
It's like that in Canada too. As soon as September hits, like Halloween, even now in the stores, there's Halloween stuff that's getting
Summerween,
pushed.
Yeah, Summerween is a big thing. We did that for our live stream we did recently. We did a Summerween thing. It's really becoming a thing. People love Halloween, and I think part of the reason I think it is because it gives us the chance to be kids again. There aren't a lot of holidays. I mean, you can do it a little bit if you observe Christmas, for example. There's a little bit of that childlike nature to it, but really, Halloween's the only one where you can be a full-blown kid again. It's very acceptable for grown-ups to dress up in costumes. There's the whole horror thing to it. It's multifaceted, but it's great for us, and it's a great time of the year.
Oh gosh, yeah, is it ever? And I mean, you've been doing this a long time, like I have. I mean, it's just, you've heard endless stories. I mean, your books are fantastic, your shows are fantastic, and I'm not just saying that because we're sitting here, but truly, I mean, the what you've accomplished over the last 20 years has been so remarkable. Sharing not only just the sort of the classic ghost story, but people's stories. And I think that's what makes it so special in terms of what you're doing, is that you're actually allowing people a platform to express things that have happened to them that they probably aren't even telling their friends and neighbors half the time.
On the Campfire show, I've had people say, I've never told anybody this story, or I've only told close family members this story. And that's kind of cool. I'm really, I'm very gratified by that. I think that's very kind of them that they would think highly enough of the show to share their story. I have to tell you, the weirdest synchronicity is, I record batches of Campfire calls. And the last call I did right before this was from a woman she's in Arizona now, but she's from Canada, and it was a Canadian story. And it might be, would you like to hear it?
I would love to hear it.
And again, this kind of speaks to the Campfire show, because they're not all classic ghost stories. Some of them just kind of make you go, So anyway, this was her story, her friend's story, and she said the guy was very straight-laced and would not make things up. He said one day he woke up and there was a guy in his living room, and he had a bar, where and the guy had taken one of his highball glasses. And this guy was, I guess he's one of those people who only buys the best, right? So really fancy highball glass. And this guy is in the middle of his house and is making a drink. And he doesn't know who he is, but it's not ghost-like. And the guy makes the drink, and then he proceeds to walk to the door. He puts his boots on. I'm assuming it was cold. He walks out, and the guy watches him walk out. And he's like, oh my God, who was this intruder? Who was this guy? He walks back to his cart. None of the alcohol is out of place. And the glasses are still there. That's all I can say is what? What does that mean? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. And we get a lot of stories like that, just ones that kind of make you go, what was that all?
That's so funny. And actually, it brings back really good memories for me, because way back when I first started and was getting calls for cases and things like that, I had a case in Edmonton, Alberta, where it was a bar owner that called us, and we got a lot of bar owners that phoned. And I think, bars are just, they're emotional places, lots of energy, and it seems to be a focus, especially here in Alberta. And the I guess the entity that was there was known for moving liquor bottles around in the fridges behind lock and key. So everything would be locked up. There was only one or two people that had the keys to the bar, and the bartenders would come in the next morning and everything would be shifted around. There would be chairs that were stacked on top of tables that didn't make any sense. There was glasses that would be stacked in weird positions. And it finally came down to the people and us asking what is the obsession with the liquor and the bars, and we got a very, very clear EVP back that said, it's not my kind of vodka. And I will never, ever forget it. It is one of my favorite stories. The people that saw him said he was dressed very well, clothes that you put early 1900s, top hat, always dressed very nice. We started calling him the Dandy Don. And but he was seen all over the place, and he seemed to be the culprit behind the liquor thing. But that story reminds me of that old bar.
Well, I've got another one for you that one reminds me of. And this goes way back, so I may not get the details 100% correct, but this is just off the top of my head. I haven't thought about this for years, but I think it was in one of the early books. So this story's probably from like 2010, 2011. So anyway, this guy, he was a restaurateur. He would open restaurants and things. And usually his restaurants were very successful. But anyway, he opened this one restaurant. And as they were getting ready to open it, that's a very hectic time when you're starting to open a restaurant, and everybody was under stress and things. And they had this one older guy who was working for him, and he was kind of like the elder statesman. Everybody looked up to him. He worked in the kitchen. He kind of tough love kind of guy. He's like, you do it this way, you do it that way, and things. The guy, unfortunately, during the prep for the opening, died. He had a heart attack, and they tried to come revive him, and no dice. He died. And after that happened, all kinds of weird stuff started happening. For example, one night they locked up the place, and the owner knew that everything was locked up 100%. Like 3 o'clock in the morning, the security alarm goes off. He gets a call from his service and says, come out.
Sure.
He goes in, and all of the table, this is what reminded me from your story. The chairs were on top of the tables. They were in the floor in different shapes, like in triangle shapes and stuff like that. And this guy said, I've opened 6, 7, 8 successful restaurants. After that happened with that guy, I had nothing but problems. People wouldn't work there. Just everything would go wrong.
Interesting.
And eventually, he ran it for as long as he had to run it, and then he had to sell it because after that gentleman died, everything went to pot.
Holy crap.
Yeah. And he said everything started out great. I don't know. Maybe he was angry he wasn't able to participate. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was a coincidence. That's also possible. But I don't know.
It's wild. There's so many stories that just make you question the nature of reality on such a massive depth. You know what I mean?
That's my big thing, is that, when I started the show, and this particular show is a little newer than the Paranormal Podcast, which I still do and just interviewed you for, and we've hopefully by the time this comes out, that will be released. Great interview. Thank you. And, but Campfire been doing 16 years. And when I started, I thought, this will just be people telling traditional ghost stories. And there is that, yes. But there's so much more. And there's stuff that you can't categorize. I'll give you another story that we just recorded because they're top of mind. Gentleman was in New York State. He was driving late at night. It was him and his wife. And all of a sudden, he's in the left lane, and he sees this car like coming at him 90, 100 miles an hour behind him. So a person in a hurry. At first, he thought it was a cop.
Yeah.
He was speeding a little bit, and he thought, I'm going to get pulled over. So he pulls over to the right lane. That car follows, and he's still going 90, 100 miles an hour. I don't know what that translates into kilometers. I should know that.
Fast.
Fast, yeah. Translate to fast in metric. That's fast. So anyway, he's like, oh my God, this guy is gonna like crash into me. And the guy gets closer and closer, and he's right on his bumper, and he's like, okay, he's like, he's white knuckling it. He's got his hands on the wheel. He's like, we're gonna get hit. And the minute he thinks they're gonna get hit, it just disappears.
What is that?
He ends up pulling over. His wife was asleep. She's like, what's wrong? He tells her. he looks around. He doesn't see any sign of anybody. Tells her what happened. Said, "You're going to have to drive. I am too shaken to drive any further because I was convinced we were going to die. This person was coming for us." So, I mean, what do you make of that? What in the world was that? Yeah, he theorized maybe it was somebody who was hot rodding or something. And there had been some other, I think it was Route 17 up in New York State. He said there had been apparently reports of other people seeing similar things. And he theorized maybe it's a ghost driver, someone who lost their life or something like that. I don't know. But again, I really believe these storytellers. I believe that they are sharing what they feel happened to them. Now, is each and every story accurate or true? I can't. I have no way to vet the stories, but I really believe from my interaction with people, they're for the most part, are being very truthful, very truthful.
That's always what I've found as well. Like the people that come forward, they're not doing it with an agenda for the most part. Like, I mean, those people are out there, but usually when they're coming to report a personal story, it's something that they 100% believe happened to them, and they're putting their best spin as best they can to try to make sense of what it is. And I find often it's that people are trying to tell people like us to try to figure out what it was. Like, can you guys give me some insight as to what I just experienced?
And because the tough thing for me, I mean, less so than you, because you're an investigator. I'm not an investigator, so I don't really feel that I can give them any answers.
Guess what? I can't either. That's the thing. It's just when I think I have a bead on what maybe might be going on, I don't. Like, I don't. I mean, I mean, I've got papers and research and what parapsychology has done for the last 100 plus years, but there's still no solid answer in it. Like, you can't definitively say, oh, that was a ghost.
Well, I mean, and again, I recently had my 20th anniversary, and when we did a live stream for that, thank you for the Paranormal Podcast. And to give you a story, another weird story about the nature of reality, and this came from the great Brad Steiger, who I know you'll be familiar with, the great author. I got to interview him quite a few times.
Oh, that's lovely.
And
he had great books.
Just great books and a great guy, and he had a great voice to tell stories.
Oof.
But he told a story about this was when he was younger, and he was like, he was in his youth and a big, strong guy, and he had lunch or dinner with John Keel. And
what a dinner. Can you imagine?
That would be something else. Yeah. So they were talking about, Keel was pursuing the question of UFOs and so forth, and Keel felt that he was being followed, and he was being discouraged from going down this line. And it was like the infamous Men in Black. And there were these men in suits one evening, and Brad said this was at a Chinese restaurant. This was the first Chinese restaurant that Brad had ever been to, and John took him there, I think, for dinner. And he, Brad said, I was young, I lifted weights, I felt real strong, invincible. By the time I got done with the dinner, I was afraid to go home. It was just so terrifying. So here's the one great story he shared with us, and I pulled for our anniversary special. So Keel said that there was this evening that they had this dinner, and Keel shared this story that some men in suits, a couple of men in suits, I think 2 or 3 men in suits came to his door and knocked on the door and asked if they could come in, and he let them in. And I think he said that he told me, you really shouldn't be messing with this UFO stuff. And he asked him, by the way, do you have any Clorox here? And bleach? And he said, yeah, under the sink. One of the gentlemen very calmly went under the kitchen sink and opened the Clorox and started drinking it out of the bottle.
What the heck?
And then closed it back up and put it back with no ill effects. And I think he felt that Keel was saying, basically, whatever these things were that looked like men, they were saying, you're into something you shouldn't be fooling with, and don't fool with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I don't know about, I wasn't there. I don't know, but that is some story. And so if you go back, you talk about the nature of reality. What are we dealing? And it gets into that kind of, you get real quick from just the ghostly thing into the UFO thing, and it broadens and it broadens. And I think the thing that's tough for me, and I don't know if it is for you, it's just like this little bit here. We've been talking for 10 minutes and look what it's spun into. Men in Black drinking Clorox. So it's like you think you have a beat on it, and then it's like, no, look over here. Look over here. Look over there.
Have I told you my Men in Black story? I have a Men in Black story.
No, please do.
Okay. So this is really, really cool. Never thought in a million years that this would happen to me, because it's just what I thought at the time was not my field. It was not my genre.
Mm-hmm.
And but I've been not dabbling, I guess it's been more than dabbling, researching pretty heavily various modes of spiritual communication, interdimensional communication, like just as much information as I can possibly get and as many experiments as I can do, I do. And I've had some incredible results. I'm sure one of these days I'll publish it. But it's been a joy to do. And I mean, like we've talked about before, all the messages have been extremely positive and helpful and lovely and just amazing stuff, right to the point of, it was the last one that a group of researchers and I did. We were given a number in the middle of this session that we were doing, and we realized that the number was a radio frequency. And it was a random radio frequency. It was like 8:82 a.m. Like it was very random. Mm-hmm. So we turned the radio on, and it was somebody telling an account of Roswell, the crash of Roswell. Out of all the radio frequencies, this is what came up. So yeah, strange stuff. So this is kind of the thing that I've been experiencing. So anyway, about a couple of years ago, I live very close to a huge mall here in Edmonton, and I was going to meet a photographer friend for supper, and I'm walking through the mall, and what passes me by but this guy, it looked maybe about 5'10" maybe, in black suit, white shirt, black tie, black hat, and pale as a ghost. And I mean, I'm pretty pale. I'm Norwegian. I'm pretty pale skin. This guy made me look like I'd been on the beach in Miami for 2 weeks. He was ghostly white and very odd shaped face, strange face, very gaunt. Enough that the first thing that I noticed was how well he was dressed, because he didn't have a speck on him. And here in Alberta, usually people are wandering around in their pajamas. So he really stood out. Right? And it was like
Cleveland.
It was like Cleveland. And he caught my eye, because it was like, man, this guy really knows how to dress. And then I'm looking at him going, you are very strange. Like, you are more than just the clothes. So anyway, walk by him, sort of let it go. I go to sit down for supper, and I'm sitting kind of like the way the mall is. It's got restaurants on either side. It's got a whole wing of restaurants on either side, and you can kind of sit in the aisle on their patio. And I'm sitting there, and I look behind me, and at the top of the stairs to go down into this restaurant wing is this guy, and he's sitting on there's sort of like a little area with plants and stuff at the top that you can kind of sit down on. He's sitting there, and he's watching me. And at this point, I kind of get a better look at him, and I start to see, like, his shoes are immaculate, like dress shoes, but looked older, like I would say maybe 60s, 70s style, with a briefcase that was, again, immaculate condition, but old. Like, it was black as well. It was, the best way I can describe it is something that you would have seen like early 1900s, maybe, but nothing, there wasn't a speck anywhere.
Like it was new.
Brand new. And he was just sitting there, and he had a water bottle, and he had gloves on, like black leather gloves. And he was just sitting, just no intimidation at all, but he was watching. And I kind of looked back at him, and I thought, okay, my brain was still not computing what I was looking at. I was still sitting there going, okay, like who are you? What? And he got up and he walked right by my table, walked like straight to what would have been the doors to the parking lot, then turned around, came back, walked right by my table, walked up the steps, and I never saw him again. And I don't know who he was. I have a suspicion as to who he was, but I don't know directly who he was. He was remarkable, just remarkable. And yeah, no intimidation. Like, I wasn't afraid of him. If I hadn't known what I was looking at, I would have gone up to him.
So I hate to like turn your show on you and interview you, but I've got to ask you about this. I've got to ask you about this. It's kind of kicking in here. So you say you have your suspicions, you know who he is. So, and maybe there's only so much you can say, but do you suppose that he was a human like you or I, or do you think he was something else? Okay.
I think he was something else. And the reason why I say that is because his look and coloration was so stark. And it was, if you hung out in Edmonton long enough, you'd know this was odd. Like this was very strange. There was something about him, just, I hate to say the word energetically because it's such a cliche term, but there was this calmness about him. And the other thing that I noticed was that nobody else seemed to notice him. My friend who did come for supper, sat down in front of me, also saw him. And he was terrified of him. He had a completely different reaction to it. He was like, I don't know what this is. I can't even eat dinner. What the heck is going on? I didn't feel that way at all. I felt just, as I say, my initial inclination when I saw him was to go up to him and say, you look amazing. Because he was dressed so remarkably well. He looked great. But there was something about him, and he recognized me. He saw me immediately and I think was there on purpose to, make some sort of a connection. But I never saw him again. And it was just the coolest thing.
Do you think it was to try to call you off of whatever you were investigating?
No, I almost got the impression it was the opposite. I almost got the impression it was more like,
keep looking.
We see you. Yeah, we see you. Like, hey, yeah, it was, I don't want to say it was like a trust thing, but it was like, you reached out and, hi, here we are. So I don't know.
And I do wonder in the line of work, and I mean, you're a paranormal investigator, which I'm decidedly not, but in the line generally that we are in, I often wonder if we're observed, whether by governmental entities, by other entities, by supernatural entities, extraterrestrial entities. I wonder if all those different categories know what we're up to. I'm sure the government does.
I feel like yes. No, you go ahead. Yeah, I just agree, just to answer your question. Yeah, I think so.
I've got a funny story. I think it's a funny story about that.
Please do.
Well, I worked for a myriad of radio stations before I started doing this full-time in 2012. I podcast for several years before I went full-time, but I went full-time in 2012. So before I went full-time, when I was still working at a radio station, it was actually a classical music radio station. I was called for jury duty. And they called me for jury duty, and I did what I had to do. And was immediately seated. They asked me what I did for a living, those kind of things. And I served. It was actually an interesting process. And I didn't, like most people, want to dodge it at all costs. I'm like, no, I should do this once. This is educational. It's my civic duty. And I was fine with it. And I actually glad I had that experience. I'm sure I'll remember that more than I will the week of work that I missed. It was far more interesting. Then they call me again like 4 years later, which is like, come on, guys. I just did this not that long ago.
Right.
But things had changed because I was a full-time paranormal podcaster. So they called me up, same thing, asked me what I did. And I kind of assumed there would be a certain bias.
Right.
So I leaned into it. They said, well, sir, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a podcaster. Well, those are online, because it was still fairly new then. Those online, what is that, online radio? Yeah, it's like an online radio show. And this is your full-time job. Well, what do you podcast on? And I made sure I picked the specific topic I was going to lead with. I said, I do a podcast on things like Bigfoot and UFOs and, ghosts. That's why I do put my podcasts on, and I do it for a living. Juror 13, you are excused. You may go home.
You know what's funny about that? I very recently, but one of my dear friends in New York is Lizette Coley, who runs the Parapsychology Foundation, and she said the same thing to me. She told, I believe it was her. She told one of these people that phoned for jurists that, yeah, she's head of the Parapsychology Foundation. Immediate dismissal. Like, just get out.
Get out and don't come back.
Yeah, like, just like, you're now blacklisted. Like, at this point,
right.
You're blacklisted. And,
right.
But it makes you wonder, though, what that is. Like, I mean, here we've got now, stuff is coming out more and more about UFOs and UAPs, and this stuff it's becoming more public that the Monroe Institute worked with the CIA, and all of this type of thing is becoming a lot more public, and it makes you wonder where that's going to head. Like, I mean, if that's becoming taboo, okay, we can't have this guy on the jury panel. Well, where's that coming from? Is that just like a personal bias? Is that what
I think it's just entrenched. And the funny thing is that judge, or whoever it was that made that judgment, they may have had their own paranormal experiences.
Right.
But I think that the biases culturally and in our institutions are so stacked against the supernatural. And when I say supernatural, I mean ghosts, UFOs, cryptid creatures, all of it. That it's so entrenched that it's going to take decades to get people to change their mind.
Yeah.
I just think, but the thing is, and I was mentioning this the other day when I did my little State of the Union talk for the 20th anniversary, is I think things are changing a little bit because, you look, there's a lot more scientific work in the area of consciousness. And is our consciousness more than just our brain? Is there a tie-in to something bigger, which I definitely believe there is? The UFO subject is getting more interesting. Dr. Avi Loeb thinks it's very possible that there is an interstellar artificial object headed towards us.
Which is incredible.
Yeah. And he's not from Joe's house of schooling. He's from Harvard University. So that doesn't mean everybody agrees with him, but you're seeing more reputable or well-known scientists coming out and saying, wait a minute. I just saw something about quantum physics that now they're talking about, we talk about the nature of time, and that they might be able to, in some ways, reverse time at the quantum level. So
wow,
and again, I don't want to be those people, when the paranormal comes up, you say, it's quantum physics. It's all quantum physics. Right. I don't know quantum physics. But the point is that it seems to me that science is starting to hint towards a lot of these things. Now, what it ultimately all means, I don't know. But it means a universe that's way stranger than we understand.
Yeah, and I think you're completely hitting the nail on the head with it becoming more acceptable in terms of just people coming forward that normally academia would have slammed to the ground. Like, I remember when my great-great-grandfather was alive, and he was a very, very noted physician in Ontario. Everybody knew this guy. And when he came out and said, look, I've been doing these spirit communication sessions, and I was a total skeptic, and now I'm not, and put 2 books out, the media went to town on him, as well as his colleagues. I mean, they just said, what the hell are you doing? Like, you are throwing your life away by even remotely making this public. I mean, he took so much heat for any of that. And now, like fast forward. So here's a story. This is kind of interesting. So recently we have a big by-election coming up here in Canada, with the leader of our Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre. And he has been doing a lot of door knocking, going door to door, talking to people, like getting to know the riding and whatnot. That by-elections probably will be done by the time this airs. And what's so interesting is that the other day he posted this video where he was talking to a lady in, I think it was Holden, Alberta. And she had an entire rock garden of places that she'd lived and taught English. Every country you could possibly think of. I didn't even think it was possible to visit this many countries. And as they're talking, you could kind of tell she was like feeling him out a little bit. And then she said, or he asked her, where was your favorite place to stay? And she said, Ireland. And she said, I had kind of a funny experience in Ireland. And he was like, okay, like what happened? And she proceeds to talk about this encounter she had with little people. And he was like almost like leprechauns. And she's like, yeah. She's like, what else do you call this? And she's like, I wasn't drunk. I wasn't on anything, but this happened. And she goes into into detail of this story where she experienced something that, in her mind, that's what she classified it as, was these little people, totally legit academic woman talking about this. And then here you have somebody of, great political repute repost it. And it's like, you never would have seen that years ago, and not reposting it like, haha, look at this woman, but listen to this story, listen to what she has to say. This is amazing. And so that story went out. So the climate is so different now, and it's shifting even in Alberta, where sometimes I question whether or not the climate's going to shift, but it did. And it's really, really wild. So, where do you see some of this going in 5 years? Do you think this is going to become completely mainstream? Like, what have you seen any patterns with you doing your show?
I think that it depends on the topic.
Yeah.
I think, to me, it's like right now to have a ghostly encounter, like a traditional ghostly encounter, I guess we would think of, or a haunting or something like that. I think that's relatively relatively acceptable, especially I think because as many flaws as I think they have, I do think the TV shows have something to do with that. And then you have something like maybe, let's say, a UFO sighting. It might be a little bit below. But then if you have something like a Bigfoot encounter, or you claim to have an actual alien encounter where you've encountered the beings, or lo and behold, be abducted. I can't even get it on the screen here, how low that is considered. Yeah. I've always thought that's an interesting hierarchy, because it's okay to say you've seen a ghost. It's kind of okay to see maybe a little wackadoo to say that you saw a UFO. But boy, if you say you saw an alien, whoo-hoo. Yeah. I think, and I'm not saying that, but I think that is the perception that is out there. But I think that over time it will improve. How much? I don't know. And I think there's people actively working against it. I think, and I can only speak to my views on the U.S. government. I can't really speak to other countries, but I view that there's like an internal war going on. And I believe there's some people who want more sunshine. And I think there are people who want to lock it down like it always was. We just saw those Wall Street Journal report articles that kind of poo-pooed the whole thing.
Yeah, can you talk about those a little bit? Because in Canada, we have a hard time getting American news because of our laws. Basically,
the gist of it was nothing to see here. And it was Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick that was mentioned heavily in the article, the former head of AARO. And basically the thing was, look, this was the Pentagon running a psyop and using UFOs to mask secret military activity. And there's really nothing else to see here. That's the kind of the TLDR on it. Do I think that it's likely that the U.S. military and probably other militaries have used UFOs to explain away certain things? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I think that explains all of it? Not for a minute. And I think this is something that the hardcore debunkers try to do. They try to take a slice of truth, a kernel of truth. And they're right about that kernel of truth. I mean, I interviewed years ago Annie Jacobson about Area 51. She wrote a great book on it, and she talked about how UFO sightings skyrocketed when they were developing things like the U-2 spy plane and the SR-71. And that's true, and that makes sense, but that doesn't mean that it explains it all. So I think that you're going to have these naysayers, particularly in the UFO area. I think that's always going to happen. I think that in the ghostly area, I think it's more just like, well, I can't believe this stuff. It's not I think that the UFO cover-up is maybe a little more sinister. I think the ghost cover-up is just kind of bigotry. And that we can't believe this. Yeah, that we can't believe this. But I think maybe that's softening a little bit. And then also I think as, I would classify myself as a believer, not a true believer that I believe everything is supernatural. Right. It's not. But I think we also have to police ourselves a little bit and say sometimes there is a logical explanation, or maybe not always. Maybe a ghost isn't always a dead person. Maybe it's a time slip. Maybe it's interdimensional. I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, when I started this, I thought, oh, ghosts, those are dead people. Easy answer. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the conversation around that has changed so much from when I started back in the day. Like when I started with this, that's what it was. Even the people that were pursuing this academically, it was spirits. Like that's what was going on. And now we've got this completely new angle of, well, maybe we're just connecting in with a different reality where that person's not dead. Like there's a different probability that's going on and we're connecting in with that probability, or a different interdimensional level or something like that. So I think even the idea of us just writing it off as, oh, this is just this classic haunting, as people would have thought of it from, the movies and things like that. Not even that's cut and dry anymore. And I mean, with all the research and stuff like that I've done, I don't know if I've come any closer to understanding exactly what it is, but I feel confident at least enough to say that I think once we lose that physical body, I think our consciousness becomes very broad and very interconnected with something else. I think because what I've noticed through my research is that when you can connect with one entity, you can connect with other entities that seem to be maybe different things. So to me, it seems like there's this sort of physical reality, almost like this sort of virtual reality that we're walking around in, that our brains are allowing us to perceive physical things. But then once that headset is taken off, so to speak, I think we're able to connect and see with a whole lot more. And I don't know what that looks like. Like I don't pretend by any means to have all the answers, but there seems to be a way that our consciousness is interacting, I think, with more than just, one type of intelligence that's out there. There seems to be a way that we can connect with a lot more. And I don't even think that our science and our parapsychology has even come close to working out how that works. But yeah, that's kind of my take on it. I mean, I can't pinpoint it, but that's, I think, where it's going, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And the thing is that people ask me, they say, well, do you feel like, does this all discourage you? And I say no. I think it encourages me from the standpoint that, to me, the biggest question probably is the afterlife. What happens after we die? And I certainly hope something happens. I don't want this to be the end. I'm getting closer to it.
We're going to look a little stupid if it's...
Yeah. But we won't care.
We won't care. No idea.
But the point is, I think there is, and people say, well, after hearing all these spooky, scary stories, do you feel does that make you feel hopeless or those kind of like, no, because to me, it aims at a broader reality. And it's saying there is a broader reality and there is something that waits beyond. And there is another frontier. And there is something about after this. And that's great. And the thing is that I've heard near-death experiencers say, it's so much much more real than this reality, which is amazing. Like, this is an illusion. This is the dream. That's the real stuff over there on the other side, which is fascinating to me because, my gosh, what is it? If this is the illusion, what is that over there?
Has there been a time God knows you've heard thousands of stories. Is there still one that shakes you up a little bit when you think about it?
Well, there is one, but I've told it so many times. I'm told on so many shows, I'm afraid I've told on the show. Did I tell you the Roadhouse Saloon story?
No, you didn't.
Oh, boy. Oh, this is a good one.
Okay, well, I'm here for it. Let's do this.
My favorite all-time story, and it's very much something that could have been, a script for The Twilight Zone. And there's a little kind of coda to this that's kind of neat. So anyway, this story is about a woman who lives in Michigan, but she would go every summer with her family to this campground up in Wisconsin in the American Midwest. And this one particular week, her and a friend of hers went to see this bar band about an hour away. And her name is T.I., this is a real person. And Bob was her friend. So T.I. and Bob went to see this bar band. So they enjoyed it. In fact, they stayed late because they're both musicians. So they talked to the band and so forth about getting gigs and just, the life of being a musician. And they headed back home, and it was like 2:30 in the morning, and they were about an hour away. So they're driving, and it's rural, and it's 2-lane, and it's super dark. It's not like a city where there's light pollution. It is dark.
Sounds like home.
Yeah, and maybe 15 minutes in, T.I.'s like, Bob, I've got to go to the restroom. And he kind of jokes and looks around and said, well, unless you pull up a tree, you're not going to have much luck here. And she said, just drive fast. So 15 minutes go by, and they can't believe their luck. There's this bar, and it's open, which after 2 o'clock here in the States, I don't know how it is up there, but after 2 o'clock,
shut down. Oh,
yeah, it's like a legal thing, But it's open, and there's a bunch of cars in there, and the joint's jumping. There's neon signs. You can even hear the thump, thump, thump of the jukebox. They say, well, we don't know why they're open, but let's stop. So they stop and get a beverage. She goes to the restroom, comes out, and everybody's kind of weird, kind of smiling, kind of blankly.
That's what you want to see at 2 in the morning.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah. And Bob says, I'm really glad we're here because there's that mural there. There was a full-scale mural on one whole side of the wall of the Old West. And he said, I've heard about this, but I never stopped here. So I'm glad that I came out to see it. And there was a bartender, and it's what they used to call a dance hall girl. And there were some patrons, they were playing cards or whatever. And then they started looking around the bar, and they noticed something funny. Everybody in the picture was in the bar.
Wow.
There was, the guys playing cards. They weren't playing cards. They were playing pool. The dance hall girl was a woman sitting at the bar. And I thought, boy, that's weird. And then they thought, well, you know what? These are regulars. And when the guy made the picture, as an homage to them, he included them in the picture. So anyway, this guy walks up to the table. T.I.'s there and Bob's there. They're having their drink. And this guy goes to T.I. He smiles real big, has a mouthful of rotten teeth, T.I. says. And he says, "Want to dance?" Because he had just put "Let's Twist Again" with Chubby Checker on the jukebox. And it was this old bubbler jukebox, like the old time Wurlitzer with the bubbles. You don't see them very much. And this is when CDs had come in, so nobody had vinyl jukebox anymore, but this was a vinyl jukebox. So T.I. actually used a cane and said she was kind of glad she did it that time because she could use that to beg off of dancing. And she holds up the cane and says, "I don't dance much, but thank you." So they start talking again about these people in the picture. So they go up to the bartender. The bartender's like this young, burly, good-looking guy. And say, hey, what's the deal with the people in the painting and being the same people? And he kind of just smiles blankly, doesn't say anything, and smiles blankly. So they go back, they're talking a little more. They're looking at the painting. And there's these two doors, like swinging doors. You know, like in the old Westerns, a guy come in and say, I want to see Bart. We're going to have a showdown. Well, those kind of swinging doors. But they noticed something that they didn't notice originally. There seemed to be two misty columns in the doorway of the painting. And then they talked a little more and they looked back and it was like, kind of like rubbing their eyes. It was like, these are a little more developed and one of these columns is like quite a bit taller than the other. Talk a little more, look again. Appear to be the outlines of a man and a woman. Talk some more, they look again. And now it starts to get freaky. T.I. says, because the woman has curly hair. T.I. has curly hair. And it's fully developed now. And the woman's wearing cowboy boots. And T.I.'s wearing cowboy boots. But the clincher is when she saw the woman also had a cane. So at that point, she decides, you know what? I'm leaving. So they both get up. And as they're leaving, the people are kind of, if you're watching on video, they're kind of beckoning back, come back, come back, come back. And they leave and they close the door. Once they close the door, everything goes dead quiet, like the place had never been open. All the neon lights are off. They turn around, they look into the parking lot, and there are not cars, plural. There is car, singular, their car. Yes. So T.I. and Bob drive back. They tell people what happened. Everybody's like, oh, come on. What were you guys drinking the other night? You know, what's going on? And said, no, it's real. It's real. Oh, T.I.'s far stronger than I am. So she decided, hey, I'm going to go back and I'm going to see what's up. So she brought, I think, her sister. She went back. She didn't wait till 2 o'clock in the morning. It was like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. Sure enough, the bar was there. She went in. The mural was there, although her and Bob were no longer in it, but all the other people were.
That was probably a relief.
Yeah. It might have been if they'd stayed. She went over to the jukebox. There was a jukebox, but guess what? It wasn't a Wurlitzer bubbler with vinyl. It was a modern day for the time CD jukebox. And oh, by the way, no chubby checker or Let's Twist Again anywhere to be found. Then she goes to the bartender, who happens to be a young woman. And she said, yeah, we were in here the other night, And she said, what happened to that big, good-looking bartender that was standing there before? And the woman goes, we don't have anybody by that description that bartends. There's 2 bartenders here. Me and my elderly father.
Phenomenal.
And then she leaves. Now, here's the kind of kicker. There's a couple little kickers to this.
Because the rest was normal.
Yeah, the rest was normal. The place is real. The mural is real. Chad Lewis, I don't know if you know Chad.
I do know
He's
Chad very well.
Fantastic. He went and he took pictures and was kind enough to post them. And the place is real. The mural is real. I went in 2019, pre-pandemic, drove up to Michigan to meet T.I. And we did a video version of this and used some of those images that Chad was kind enough to share. And I'm not going to say specifically what profession, but very respected member of the community, very respected profession. I believe she's retired now. Absolutely believable. I believed her before. I believe her even more now. And that's probably the story that has stuck with me most over the years, the story of the Roadhouse Saloon. Now, up to that point, she had not been back. I think she might have actually gone back and visited the Roadhouse Saloon. I know it was open a few years ago. I don't know with the pandemic and everything if it's still open. I did try to call them one time and try to say, hey, could we do an interview with somebody from it and see if, you know, what you've heard about this story and those things, and nobody ever called me back. But that is my favorite campfire story.
Oh, that's remarkable. Like,
yeah, and I believe her. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think, oh, come on, that's something out of the Twilight Zone, but she came across as totally credible, and I still stay in touch with it.
But yeah, it's stuff that I've heard before. oddly enough. Like, not to that necessarily that extent, like with the mural and things like that, but people reporting going somewhere, visiting a place, and then they talk to somebody the next day, or they go back the next day and it's either gone or there's something's shifted or changed, or like, so I mean, I have no reason to doubt her either.
Real quick, I'll tell another quick one. This goes back to, I think, the 80s. This was a woman who was going to college up in New England. I think it was like a commuter school that was 45 minutes, an hour from her home. She was taking some night classes. So she was driving and her car gave out on her on the freeway. And this is before cell phones. So, you know, it's 8 o'clock at night. It's New England, very cold. And she's like, well, what am I going to do? I'm not just going to sit here freeze or have somebody come along and, you know, whatever.
Right.
So I'm a person of action. She happened to look down over the embankment, and a lot here in the States, you'll have freeways, and then parallel, a lot of times you have old 2-lane roads, you know, before the freeways were
Sounds
built.
like Alberta.
Yeah. So she's like, you know what? There's a garage down there. The lights are on. I'm saved. She said she was not dressed to be, you know, going down an embankment and all this, but she persevered and she got down and she talked to someone at the desk. And she was talking to him, and he said, well, there's not much I can do for you. And he pointed at the clock, and it was like 5 minutes before the top of the hour. And they were going to go ahead and close. He said, yeah, we're about ready to close, but maybe the owner can help you. Because the owner, I guess, lived right next door in a house or something. And all of a sudden, he seemed to just appear. Not that he materialized, but he wasn't there 1 minute, and then she turned around and he was there. And it was an older gentleman, and she told him the situation. Can you look at my car? Absolutely, I can look at your car. He goes up, he says, well, I can't fix this tonight, but I can give you a tow somewhere closer to your home, to wherever you go.
Fair enough.
And that's very nice. And she said, yeah, thank you so much. Yes, please. So he never mentions money, doesn't want to take any money, takes her to the tow place. And he says, well, you're going to need a ride home. I'll take you home. So he rides her home. And finally she asks, she said, you know, I got to pay you something. And he's like, oh, $20, you know, that'll do it, which was major out of his way, you know.
Sure.
So she goes inside, gets her, she didn't even have a checkbook or anything. She goes inside, writes him a check, gives it to him. And an odd thing, he said, tell your parents everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be just fine, which was kind of an odd thing to say. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, she was so grateful to this guy. She thought, what a nice man. This is like the way people should be. You know, he went out of his way to help me. He didn't even act like he wanted any money, but he took it. And anyhow, she remembered this, and she was with her, I think her mom and her sister. A couple of days later, they were going shopping to the big town. I don't know where it was, but, you know, I think this same town said, hey, let's take a little different route. I want to show you this gas station where this guy helped me out. Such a nice guy. Drives by. The gas station is there. It looks like it's been boarded up for 15 or 20 years.
Wow. Holy.
Now, I don't think she remembered if the check was cashed. I asked her, I think, and I don't think that she remembered, but what was that?
Remarkable.
What was that about?
Remarkable experience. And what I love about these stories too, which I find really interesting, is it's so often them helping, whoever they are, helping someone out. Like, more of these stories run that way than not. Like, it's not some, you know, terrifying encounter of people being, you know, threatened or whichever. Usually it's like, I got stuck somewhere, I needed help, something was happening, and something stepped in to help me, and they can't explain it. And I think that to me is like, I have goosebumps just sitting here talking about this right now, because I think that's the big takeaway. Whatever it is that's happening is helpful, and it's responding, and it's aware of what's going on in people's circumstances. Like when I was doing Paranormal 911, when it was still on, most of the cases that I was given were similar things to that, where it was either some sort of entity that was calling the police, or the police would get there and, you know, somebody would be there to say, okay, the person's having a heart attack, you have to go upstairs, this is where you go. And then they come back downstairs and the person's gone, and then they find out it was the dead husband of the woman having a heart attack. who they saw, and they saw a picture of him, and they're like, that's the guy. Like, he called 911. And it's so remarkable. And it's like, we are just not alone. Like, whatever it is, and I mean, we don't have the answers, but whatever it is, we are not alone. I think that's the big takeaway for me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So I think the supernatural, and we talked about this when we did our interview, fright sells. People, but I always like with the Campfire, yes, you're going to tune the Campfire and you're going to get a couple of scary stories every week, pretty much. But you're also going to get these heartwarming things. I look at it as like giving them their vegetables too, It's like with Pink Floyd, you can't have any pudding if you haven't eaten your meat.
Right.
But the point is that I'll give them their spooky pudding, but they've also got to, endure some kind of heartwarming stories. And most of the time, people, I think, appreciate both.
I think people do appreciate it. And I think more people are appreciating it as we move forward. So for those strange people on the fringe of society who do not know about Jim Harold's Campfire and your other shows, tell them where they can find it, what's up, and talk to them about the new show as well.
Oh, sure. Jim Harold's Campfire, and that's the one that I recommend people usually go to first. I think it resonates with the most people. That's the spooky stories we talked about. Just look up Jim Harold's Campfire in your favorite podcatcher. Or also, we have a video version on YouTube as well. Just in the last few months, we rolled out the video parallel version to it. Then we have the Paranormal Podcast, which Morgan has been on multiple times, a great guest. And that's the one that just celebrated its 20 years. Same thing. It's everywhere you find your podcasts, also on YouTube. And then I do a show with my wife, which is relatively new, the Paranormal Report, where we look at different paranormal news stories. We also argue a little bit back and forth, which people seem to like. And that's the Paranormal Report, and ditto in all the same places.
Yeah, it's fantastic, guys. I can't recommend these enough. You will not be able to stop listening. They're so fascinating and interesting. And Jim, you're just a fantastic presenter, and the way you handle these cases and these stories, is so remarkable to me. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing a little bit of the Campfire with Supernatural Circumstances.
Well, thank you for allowing me on the show with you and your great audience. Always a pleasure. And let me be the first to wish you happy Halloween. Or maybe not, but happy Halloween.
At least Summerween.
There you go.
Hellman's believes they can turn any mayo hater into a lover. So, if you know someone who thinks mayo equals bland, show their taste buds the truth and challenge them to try Hellman's flavored mayo. With irresistible flavors like Hellman's spicy mayo, garlic aioli, chipotle, and Italian herb, they'll be eating their words. Challenge haters to try Hellman's flavored mayo and get them to eat their words. Learn more at hellmans.com/eatyourwords.
This episode is brought to you by Dogfish Head Craft Brewery. The Grateful Dead and Dogfish Head have gotten the band back together with the release of Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale, a light-bodied pale ale brewed with sustainable Kernza grains, granola, and heaps of good karma for a refreshing brew that's music to your taste buds. Available nationwide. Visit dogfish.com to find Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale in your neck of the woods. Dogfish Head Craft Brewery is located in Milton, Delaware. Please drink responsibly.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Buying a car shouldn't eat up your week. That's why Carvana made it convenient. Car buying that fits around your life, not the other way around. You can get pre-qualified for an auto loan in just a couple of minutes and browse thousands of quality car options, all within your terms, all online, all on your schedule. Turn car buying into a few clicks and not a full week's endeavor. Finance and buy your car at your convenience on Carvana. Financing subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply.
At Capella University, learning online doesn't mean learning alone. You'll get support from people who care about your success, like your enrollment specialist who gets to know you and the goals you'd like to achieve. You'll also get a designated academic coach who's with you throughout your entire program. Plus, career coaches are available to help you navigate your professional goals. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Well, that was so much fun. I always learn so much when I'm with him. And here I am telling stories I don't even usually tell. That's the magic of Jim Harold. His show is amazing. And if you guys have not heard it, I highly, highly recommend subscribing to any of his podcasts. He's just a phenomenal person. It's hard to get the saloon story out of your head. We live in this world where we understand so little that I think when we start to reach out to other people and start to reach out to other areas maybe that we don't live, or new places, and you begin to see a whole other existence come together, and it's phenomenal. And that's some of the magic I think about some of these tales and these stories that get passed along. We often don't consider the storyteller as something that is an important role in society, but the reality is it is really important, and things get passed down, knowledge gets passed down, tradition gets passed down by people like Jim Harold. And in other cultures, maybe not the Western cultures, but other cultures, storytellers are very revered, and it's such an important role I think that we all have in the lives of our kids and just the lives of others, that we listen to these stories and we pass them down. And of course there's always going to be the telephone game. things are going to change, but at the end of the day, it's so magical. And I don't think there's anything that replaces sitting around a fire and enjoying some of these tales, whether they're based in reality or not. And it's a remarkably special feeling. So I hope that you guys are doing that this summer. I hope you guys, whether it be, in the backyard around the fire pit, or whether you're out in the woods and just having fun with the family and friends and whatnot, taking the time to really enjoy that mythos and the unknown, because it's such a gift, especially even in the summer season when we're not really thinking about the paranormal as much. But Summerween, that's a new thing. I'm telling you guys, that's a new thing. That's what it's about. So I don't know about you, I had an absolute blast. Thank you for joining us on this eerie expedition, dear listeners. And remember, there is no line between the natural and the supernatural. All is consciousness. Until next time, stay curious, friends. Supernatural Circumstances is a co-production of Entity Seeker, Paranormal Research and Teachings, and the 20th Plane. This podcast is a part of the Curious Cast podcast network. You can find out more about me, Morgan Knudsen, and book me for live appearances at entityseeker.ca. You can also email the show at supernaturalcircumstances.com.
Stack TV is now 50% off.
We got work to do.
That's literally the entire streaming service.
Hurry, come with me.
Premium drama for half the damage. Reality TV Gold for half the coin.
Throw out everything that you know about the challenge.
And if you love comedy, get ready to laugh your half off.
I'd hold on to something, Rick. You wouldn't.
Only half kidding. Get Stack TV now for 50% off for 2 months. Offer ends August 18th. Sign up to watch now. Prime membership required. Restrictions apply.